Hello, hello, hello. I've got my tea, I have got my Post-it notes, and so I am ready to chat with you, and I want to just get right into it. Are you ready? Here is the question. Why are relationships so hard? Okay? I don't know about you, but this is a question I've asked myself. This is a question I've had friends ask themselves, ask me. I've had strangers just randomly talk to me about it, right? Why are relationships so hard? And people be just like, she is just stressing me out. Why are we so stressed out by our relationships? Whether they're our children, whether they're our lovers, whether they are our life partners, whether they are our parents, whether they are co-workers, right? Why are relationships so stressful? So I have a reason that I want to tell you about and share with you for why I believe relationships are so stressful. But first, because this may be your first time ever coming across any of my videos, I do want to have good manners and introduce myself to you. So my name is Beth Brown. I am a Christian confidence coach, and I help my clients to map out their life success stories. And by map out, I mean mindset transformation, heart transformation, really focusing in on spiritual care through forgiveness and not being afraid, finances, job loss, health changes, relationships. That's what I'm going to be talking about in a second or two. And also physical life transformation. And I do this because we as humans are three parts. We are body, mind, and spirit. And so when I help people to map out their life success stories, I help people work on all three aspects of themselves, because all parts of us need self-care, needs TLC, right? Our emotions, our minds, our thoughts, and our bodies, right? So let's get back to the question. Relationships, why are they so hard? So a few months ago, I felt like God was leading me to talk more about fear. And I was like, okay, I kind of get it, God, but why? And when I started reflecting on it, what I realized was, even in my own story, personally, but also in the stories of almost everyone that I know who's told me their relationship story that was stressful, or just in general, their life story, there's a lot of fear. And at the root of all of it. So for me, I don't know, again, like I said, this may be your first time. So I'll share a little bit about my story, and that will be an example for you and what I mean by how fear really is kind of like a root cause. And I really feel that, like, if we're going to really live the life of our dreams, if we're going to really have the relationships of our dreams, the businesses of our dreams, whatever, the bodies of our dreams, we have to get to the root, right? We have to get to the very, deepest point of the problem. So, what happened was, at one point, I decided I was just going to do everything, right? So I was not fully happy. I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 20 years, but I was not fully happy with my particular job situation. And I thought I might want to also go into being a massage therapist. So I signed up for massage therapy school. Also kept my day job, was continuing teaching. And before I was a confidence coach, before I added that in, I also had a photography business. I am a professional photographer, still am. So I had all of these things going on. And if you've ever taken a science course, specifically an anatomy class, you'll know that it's pretty intense, and there's just like a lot of memorization. You have to learn all the bones in the body. You have to learn all the muscles. You just have to like learn their names, what they do, how things pull, how they push, how it just everything, right? It's a lot. It's intense. So I'm doing photo shoots. My business in 2016, that fall of 2016, I was booking a lot. I was also teaching. That meant I had to plan lessons and grade papers. So it wasn't like I just go to work and come home, right? There was a whole lot of work around that. When you're a photographer, it's not just doing a photo shoot. There's a whole lot of post-production afterwards, right? And I was going to school, not full-time, part-time, but I was also having a lot of homework. So I was working constant, right? And I think at the root of it, to be honest, there was fear that caused me to take on too much. I could have held back on my photography and been like, maybe this is not the best thing to be doing right now. Maybe I really just need to focus on like my future professional goal and like my current responsibility. But I was afraid if I took a break from photography, then I would not continue to have clients. People would forget about me. I wouldn't be able to get my business back. That's a fear. So I was making choices and being so busy out of fear when I get to the root of it, right? So enter November of 2016. And so I go to this event and I meet this guy there. And he seems like a nice guy. And he also seemed like he'd be fun. So I said, I could use a little fun in my life. I am so busy. Now I had friends. It wasn't like I didn't have any friends, but whatever. I chose to allow him into my space and give him my time. And not that I had much time, but right. And I told him at the very beginning that, okay, I'm the type of person, I don't share people. I do not care what women you sleep with, what you do with other women. But if you're going to be doing things with other women, then you're not going to be doing them with me. This is my demand. I mean, it is a demand. I do not share. So maybe it's because I was an only child. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm just not into that. Not particularly because I cared anything about him. For me, really, honestly, it was about like health, trying to protect my health. So anyway, a few months later, this was a very short-lived situationship. We're out and there was, I don't remember, 4 or 5 of us out. And he's like, I don't know. I'm just feeling something's off with him and this other woman who was also out with us. And I was like, I think something's going on. So I asked him to walk me to my car at the end of the evening. Well, I kind of cut the evening a little bit short. I was like, I've got to go. Walk me to my car, and he did. And on our way, I can't believe I'm saying this because I am a Christian confidence coach. But just to know, there have been moments in my life where I have walked in alignment with God and his advice for how to do things. And I've also not. And there have been times in my life where I've just gone and done my own thing. And this is clearly one of those moments where I was just off doing my own thing. I don't recommend it. A lot of times when we go off doing our own thing, there's a fear-based something that's causing us to get impatient and start doing things on our own. But anyway, let me get back to the point. So he's walking me to my car and I'm like, so are you fucking her? And he was like, yes. like, okay, then we're done. And I got into my car, and I remember he was like stunned, and then he looked kind of angry. But what was he gonna do, right? That's it. So that for me, that really was it. There was not any going back, right? When I say something, I do actually mean it. So, he said, so that was it. So a couple weeks later, he had some items of his in my apartment. So I was like, okay, you can come over, and get your items. I wasn't even mad at him, right? Wasn't thrilled with him, right? But I wasn't mad at him. There was no hard feelings. To me, it was over. So I was like, I'm gonna be making dinner. You can have some dinner, whatever. I get where it could have been a little confusing to him, like ladies saying we're done, but she is also letting me come pick up my things. She's giving me food, but really, I don't wish you any bad. Go ahead, live your life, right? I'm going to go ahead and live my life. So it didn't go well for him, right? What I realize now is that he wanted control. He wanted to take control back. There were a lot of things that were going on with him as well. He had been newly divorced, all sorts of things. I'm not really going to go into telling his business, because that's his business to tell, but not here. But he was, in the end, what I realized was his life itself was kind of spinning out of control. And so by insisting that we have sex, even though I was insisting no, all right? By insisting and forcing himself on me, it was his way of getting back control. And at the root of it, there was fear. I think a lot of times when someone hurts someone, when someone violates someone's body, when someone violates someone's wishes or desires intentionally, continues just to plow right on through. I would say, at least from my personal experience and from what I've heard from other people speak and what I've read and studied, that really a lot of times there's fear, whether the person realizes or not. There's really this root cause of fear. And so moving forward, I was then a little bit afraid for then being really open and honest, right? For starters, I wanted to pretend that this did not exist. I actually tried to help him. For a few months, I tried to help him. I know that might sound a little crazy, but at that time, this was my broken self, right? It was not my healed self. And so I did try to help him a little bit. But you can't help someone who is also not in a place where they're going to be helped. And also at doing what he did to me, it was not my place or responsibility to help him. And I was, again, taking on too much responsibility, right? So that was really something also that I had to work through. And at the root of that, trying to take on responsibility that wasn't even mine. When I think about it now and things that I've worked through and learned about myself since then, there was a lot of fear that was in that. And well, if I don't take responsibility and help this person, how is this person going to get help? Listen, Jesus is my savior. Jesus is the world's savior. It is not my responsibility to save others from themselves or situations. But there was a fear that was driving that, right? And I would say almost an ego-inflated fear. But anyway, moving on, continuing forward, I decided that I really didn't want to have to deal with this. And the best way to do this was just to move forward, make new memories with someone new, just get happy with someone new, right? That would solve all my problems. My life would be fine. So start getting to know someone new, someone who I really liked. I'll be honest, I really loved him. So yeah, not good. I do not recommend it, okay? Because I actually was in a very dark place, feeling an emotionally dark place, how I felt about myself, right? As a result, I had listened to different things growing up from other Christians where like, oh, rape means that the woman asked for it. Rape means, you know, the woman deserved it. You know, she had to have been doing something. What did she do? She did something wrong, and you know what? She's tarnished. You know, she's not really desirable. I had listened to these things, and they kind of came back to the front of my mind, and they were part of my thinking process. So I lied to this man in fear, and I did a whole lot of things in fear. I did some really crazy things. I acted out of character. One, I'd never lied to anyone. I won't say I'd never lied, ever. But in a relationship, in a dating relationship, I'd never lied to someone about my past. I'd always told the truth. It didn't matter if I'd gone on one date or a million dates. Well, I've never been on a million dates with one person, but you get it. I was always someone who was honest, right? I had this boyfriend in my early 20s, right? And I cheated on him. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And do you know that each time I cheated on him, I told him I cheated on him? That's what I'm saying. I've never been in a position, even when I have been wrong in my behavior, I was never someone who was a liar in my relationships with my partners. But I lied to this new man because I was afraid. I was afraid that if he knew about my past, he'd be like, oh, you don't have good judgment. You're not someone that I would consider to be a wife, because a wife needs to have, you know, wisdom and, you know, all of these things that you don't have. Oh, yeah, that happened to you. You're kind of like ruined goods. There are all these things. And so I hid my past from him, but I also did some pretty like crazy things. And I also had these really crazy thoughts go through my mind. So like one day, for example, this new man, he texts me and he's like, send me a selfie. And so I send him a selfie and he texts me back like this heart emoji. And now whether or not he meant the heart emoji or not, that's not my business. But what I did immediately was think, he's such a liar. He doesn't like me. That photo of me, no, it's not attractive. How could he possibly send me back like googly heart eyes? That's not how he feels. And it wasn't based on any fact of how he felt or didn't feel about me. It was based on how I felt about myself. And so there were some things that I really did that he probably, I've never actually told him, he'd probably be shocked to hear. But it was really self-sabotage, and it was all in fear. And clearly, obviously, the relationship didn't work. I didn't want myself. And so when he called me up and said, oh, I don't want you, I don't know why I was so shocked, but it was my worst fear come true, right? And so at the base, at the root of all of these problems, this drama in my relationships, some of it not my fault, some of it definitely brought on by my choices and my attitudes and my thinking and how I was moving, all rooted in fear. So that is that. Now, here, I want to make sure, because I did get a little bit off track and I didn't mean for my story to go quite this long, but, you know, think back in your life, your story is probably very different than mine, but think about your relationship stories. and I'm sure you'll see that you've probably made some choices, whether you were like going against yourself or, whatever it was, some things not your fault and some things your fault. And you might start seeing how, I see how fear was really at the root of why I did X, Y, or Z, or why my ex did X, Y, or Z, or why my current husband or wife is doing X, Y, Z, right? And if you really start thinking about it, even though I'm sure your story is different than mine, you might start seeing similarities of like the fear. So, what really this all comes down to is I was living in my past, right? And I was living in the future. I was not living in the present. So our relationships get into such a struggle because, and stress us out so much and are so hard because we're living in the past. I was with a man who broke my heart, actually. I was done telling my story. But what happened is when he hurt me, I was mad at him. I was so mad. I really didn't know what to do with my anger. I was so disappointed. I was crushed. I wasn't even being reasonable. It was because I had not healed, right? I had not healed from a past trauma. And so I had like this past hurt that was now on top of a new hurt was put on top of, right? And I chose not to forgive this man. Like for 2.5 years, I was just in this battle of wills with God where I refused to forgive him. And at the root of that was fear. There were a lot of things, right? I hadn't taken time to heal, but I'd been afraid to be honest with myself. I had been afraid of the pain that I would face, that I would have to feel if I had to go through and process everything, how I felt about my body after rape. There's just so many things, right? So many things, right? And I was afraid. And I was silent about what happened because I was afraid to say it out loud, right? And then I was also ashamed of this new guy not liking me. And shame, really, the root is fear. And so I was also just like, how dare you? But you don't deserve to be forgiven because you lied to me and you did X, Y, and Z. So I just held on to my unforgiveness towards him. I just held this grudge because I was also like, well, what happens now? Like, I have to forgive you. And then when I forgive you, that makes me vulnerable to the love that I still have for you. And that was scary to me. It was before I understood boundaries, how to, how to maintain all of that, how to really heal. But at the root of it was fear. And I had to face my fears. I had to be honest with myself. I remember the first time that I said out loud, this was like 1.5 years later, I was raped and I lied to the man who I love about it. When I said that, I felt like instant release. I said that out loud and no one was listening to me. I was in a space where other people were around, so it was kind of like a confession, but it was like a confession where no one really cared. No one was listening to me. And I felt instantly like this entire weight had been lifted off of me. And it was this fear of saying out loud what had happened to me. And I don't know if that's something that you can relate to or not, but maybe in your relationships, there are things that you have been ashamed of that you've taken into your new relationships like I did. And because you never even forget talking to the other person or forget being honest with the other person about your past, just because you yourself have never acknowledged your pain or never spoken it out loud, right? You can be holding yourself back. And so I encourage you to, like, whatever it is that you're afraid of, it's okay to just say it out loud. Nothing is going to happen to you. Nothing happened to me. The only thing that nothing bad happened to me. Something did actually happen to me. I found freedom. I actually had this release. It was like my secret, my embarrassing, humiliating, awful, disgusting, ugly secret was out. It literally was out. I had said it. It like went out into the atmosphere, and I had a whole lot of work I still had to go through, but that was like the first step to being able to go through the other steps that I needed to take. So I encourage you, nothing bad is going to happen to you. You don't have to even tell anyone. You don't have to have anyone who's, you're speaking to. You can just say out loud what it is that you've been afraid to say out loud. And once it's out, and you're going to be able to move forward for your healing, because we want our presence and our futures to be based on ourselves. We want to be ready for what we say we're ready for. And I think that's also another thing, is that why relationships are so difficult, so stressful, is because a part of us knows we're not ready for what we want, but we don't even want to admit that we're not ready for what we say we want. Right? I wanted love. I still do. I wanted marriage. I still do. But at that particular time, when I met that new guy, right, the new man, I was not ready for what I knew I wanted. And because I was not ready, I didn't feel I deserved it. I didn't feel worthy of it. Even though I didn't really want to admit it to myself, I knew I wasn't ready. And so I was doing things real subtle that I'm sure, would have never caught. And like I said a little while ago, if I actually told him some of the things I did, he'd be like, okay, I remember you doing that, but that's why you did that, right? Because I was kind of like trying to sabotage myself, and it was because I knew I wasn't ready. And sometimes this is what happens, and it's all rooted in fear. And you're like, okay, I'm not ready, but here is like this opportunity, and I'm not ready for it. Oh crap, now what am I gonna do? Can you relate? Anything that I'm saying resonating with you? Am I the only one who's just like made choices in relationships and made them stressful and made them difficult when they didn't have to be? So yes, I was not ready. And that's something that I do also want to challenge you with today, is get ready. Whatever it is, you may not have a trauma that you have to heal from. It may be something physical, right? You may be like, I feel like I'm a little too chubby. I feel like I'm a little too fat. I feel like I'm a little too skinny. Whatever it is you feel about your body, get your body ready. Get your body in shape. Here's the thing. You may not realize it, but you might be secretly sabotaging yourself with the fear of not really being ready for a marriage. You might be saying you're ready for a marriage, but you might be like, I'm not in shape. And so you're kind of like maybe holding yourself back a little bit. And you do need to actually be in shape for a relationship. So get ready. Get your body ready. Exercise. Get your cardio up, right? You might be making sexual choices based on how you feel about your body or what you feel like you can attract at this moment. You might be settling in fear. A lot of people who are in relationships aren't in relationships that were their dream relationships. Now, I am not talking about just sticking with your type or having like a top tier, oh my gosh, I can't think of the word right now, a high value man or woman. I'm not talking about like that type of, that's like a whole nother conversation. But for example, men like sex, right? You want a husband, you're a woman. Well, are you in shape to be able to keep up with him, to give him what it is that he's really gonna want and need as a man? As a man, women, we're not like instant, right? The way our minds, the way our bodies are set up takes stamina on your part. We take time, we're work. In a good way, we're work, right? There's a reward. But is your nutrition, your diet set up so that you physically can give us really what we need? A lot of women fake things, right? We'll be like, oh yeah, that was good. I'm happy. Oh, women, we lie about this, right? So as a man, are you physically ready? If you say you want marriage, are you physically ready to meet the needs of your wife? As a woman, are you physically in shape to meet the needs of your husband? Or are you gonna just be like every night, I'm too tired, I don't feel like it? You can't be like that, not in a relationship, not in a marriage. And so as a result, you might settle. You might be settling for someone who's not really gonna ask much of you, because you know you're not really ready for that, or you can't do that. So you might actually be willing to settle for something that's not, or someone, you know, that really isn't the best for you. And I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just simply saying a lot of times we make our choices and who we end up in partnership with because of fear. Like, what if he doesn't like me? What if she doesn't like me? Well, what if they don't? Do you like you? Right? That's like you're living again in the past. Oh, I remember Susie, or I remember Jimmy didn't like me. Okay, well, that was them, and now you're in front of Brad. He's totally different. Why are you worried? How do you like yourself? Right? And I mean, genuinely, do you like yourself? Do you like your own company? Or are you afraid of your own company? Forget a relationship with another person. Are you afraid of a relationship with yourself? When was the last time you took yourself out on a date? Do you even know what it is you like? If you know yourself and you like yourself, and I'm not talking about being blind to your flaws and being like, oh, I can show up any way I like, however my hair is, however my outfit is, for man or woman, right? You want to be well groomed, right? You want to always put your best foot forward. That's just self-care. It's just showing yourself some TLC, right? But the fact of the matter is that it's also attractive, right, to the other person if you show up attractive. Just saying. So when was the last time you invested in yourself? Invested in giving time for yourself, your self-care? What types of foods are you eating? How are you nourishing your skin? Do you have facial oils? Okay, I think I'm probably biased on facial oils. I have like 3 in my cupboard right now in my bathroom. But yeah, I mean, like, how are you taking care of yourself? Do you like yourself? And then it's not like about having like a hard shell of, well, if he doesn't like me and take me as I am, or if she doesn't like me and take me as I am. I'm not talking about like an attitude. I'm just simply saying, do you like yourself? And then just being in the moment, and you just show up in front of that other person and be you. And then all you're doing in your relationship, say it's a first or second or third date, you're just getting data on the person. It's not, a lot of times we jump then into the future and we're like, oh my goodness, how is this gonna work? What if his mother doesn't like me? What if his father doesn't like me? What if her friends don't like me? What if I'm not cool enough? What if what if I don't make enough money? What if I don't have whatever? This is not important. You're literally, when you are with someone in a relationship, whether it's like a committed relationship and you've been with someone for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 60 years, or whether this is just 6 hours into, you've had 2 dates or 3 dates and you spent like 6 hours of time together, or I don't know where I'm getting 6 hours, but whatever. My point is, you're just gathering data. It's like conversation. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about how it's going to look. Don't worry about the time. By gathering data, you'll know whether or not you're going to waste time. Like, oh, what if I'm wasting my time on this man? What if I'm wasting my money on this woman? Well, you kind of know a little bit up front by gathering some data on him or her. Sit down, ask them on date 1, what's the thing you are most proud of? Tell me something that you've accomplished that you're really proud of. And whatever they give you as as their answer gives you a whole lot of data. That one question alone, right? I don't have anything I'm proud of that I've accomplished. I don't feel like that lets you know something about them. They say, oh, recently I did X, Y, and Z, and I'm really proud of myself for doing X, Y, and Z. And then you know that they've recently done something that they're happy and proud of themselves for. And so you've got like another idea, another picture of like who they are as a person. Or they may be like, yeah, I remember I did X, Y, and Z. And, there were other people who were my competitors. And like, I just smashed them right into the ground. And I won. And I this and that. And they're like really talking themselves up like they're the man, they're the woman. You also have a whole nother set of data on that person, and whether you've got yourself a green flag, a yellow flag, or a red flag. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing to be afraid of when you think of it as, I'm just sitting here having this conversation with a person. I know I like me. I know I'm comfortable with me. So that's that. I'm getting data. I'm enjoying myself. I'm in the moment. And it will take care of itself. It's all going to, if you are really doing your best, if you are in a place where you yourself are actively healing and working on yourself and evolving and leveling up, as I like to say, leveling yourself up, elevating yourself, just, doing what you're supposed to be doing in life, whatever that work looks like for you, right? It's gonna, and you're praying about it and you're using wisdom and it's gonna all work itself out. Sometimes with a little bit of struggle. And here's like another fear, right? Another reason why relationships are so difficult. I just lost my brain. I lost my brain. I just lost the thought in my brain. And I wrote it down. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. What if she doesn't like me? Oh yeah, a fight. I'm so glad I have my notes. I I'm looking at the timer. I've been talking for 39 minutes. I feel like I'm doing a monologue here. So yes, thank you for your patience as I get my thoughts together. This is one of the reasons why our relationships are so difficult. We avoid conflict. Whether it's people pleasing as the root, and we're afraid that if we disagree with someone or we push back, they won't love us anymore, they won't want us anymore. We're being like the difficult woman, the angry woman, whatever it is, the domineering man, the misogynistic man, right? Like you're afraid. Men and women have different reasoning behind why they might be afraid of that conflict and of that pushback, but whatever it is, so then there's silence, and so now people are afraid to share who they really are, what they really like. For example, it could be something simple like, where do you see yourself living? Do you see yourself living in the city or on a farm or in a small town? And now the guy's like, I see myself living in the city. And you're like, oh, dang, I always wanted to live on a farm. But for whatever reason, you really like this guy. And so now all of a sudden you're saying, yeah, I love living in New York City and I want to stay here forever. Or if not New York City, like Paris or London, you know, I always want to live in a big city. Now all of a sudden you're answering questions, not really telling what it is you really want. I don't know why I'm using such a big deal. It could be food. What do you want for dinner, honey? I want Italian. I want Indian. I want Haitian. I want Thai. I want Jamaican. I want whatever it is. And so you're the other person's like wanting this, but that is not at all. You want anything and everything but that. And yet sometimes, I'm not saying you don't all, sometimes just like in relationships, sometimes you do want to, you know, cater to the other person. I'm not saying not to cater to the other person ever. But what I am saying is that sometimes we're just like afraid of causing conflict or being in disagreement with someone. And it could be something over, like something as small and silly as like what to have for a snack or where to go to eat. It could be something big, like where to live, how many kids. There's just so many things, and or you just like have a fight over whatever. I mean, fights are a lot of times over whatever, and then after your fight, you're like, oh my goodness, what if she doesn't ever call me again? What if they don't think about me the same way? If someone loves you, they're going to love you. And to be honest, when there's conflict, what you get is you get more data on the person. Well, for starters, you get to see how they respond in conflict. Does this person stay calm in the conflict, or does this person start punching holes through the wall? My mom has a story about a friend of hers who on their honeymoon, her husband punched a hole through the wall and said, I'm going to be in charge of the finances. I mean, a honeymoon is a little bit late to get that kind of data, but hey, it's data, it's information about how that person is going to behave in a conflict. And better you get into a conflict when you're dating, when you're first starting to get to know someone, even forget dating, just being their friend. Better for you to get data on them and know how they're going to react than being so quiet and like, oh, if I push back and if there's conflict, maybe he won't marry me, maybe she won't marry me, maybe I won't get the life that I want to live in the house, in the apartment with the husband, whatever. And so now you could be on your honeymoon having like maintained the peace in the dating, and now you're like, oh shit, what did I just get myself into? Because that's what I would be saying if my husband punched his fist through the wall on our honeymoon, right? So don't be afraid. Do not be afraid to get data on people. Don't be afraid of the conflict. By being in disagreement with someone, you get to know so much. And when you're in a disagreement, you might actually realize, hey, my way of thinking, you know what? I still agree with myself, but I totally see what this person is saying. And this is giving me something new to think about. And that might be a good idea. That might be worth a try. I'm curious what would happen if I went ahead and proceeded like the other person is suggesting. I mean, maybe my feathers feel a little ruffled. Maybe I feel some sort of way right now, but let me try it. Let me experiment. Let me see where this is going. And that conflict, in the end, can teach you something. You might learn things. You might have new experiences, like fun new experiences that you love and that you enjoy, and new memories, all because of a conflict. You don't know what's going to come out of the conflict. Conflict does not mean it's going to come to a bad end, but a lot of times when we're living in the past, we've seen either through ourselves and past personal relationships where conflict, like things really went south, right? Conflict really did not end well for us, or maybe we saw growing up between our parents or our aunties or uncles or our friends, times where conflict became dangerous for them, or things just went really weird and bad. And so now as a result, we're like, well, I don't want to live through rejection. I don't want to live through being alone. I don't want to live through whatever it is. So let me just hold my peace. And that's not like the good kind of peace. That's not like the calm peace, because when you keep your mouth shut in fear, it's going to come out somehow, in some way, shape, or form. It could come out in a health problem, right? Because when we keep our mouth shut, you're just like, this isn't sitting right with me. Now you're feeling all this stress inside your body. Your body's like, stress. So now your body's like on alert. Now you might be having high blood pressure the next time you go to your doctor, or different things. It can be triggered health-wise. You might, because you're keeping your mouth shut, now there's like with your partner or whatever, there's just not, there's not the freedom of giving the other person really the choice to continue loving you. And at the end of the day, isn't that why we all want relationships? Because we want love. And if we have that conflict and we have that agreement, we're giving someone else who we love and want to be loved by the opportunity to choose us all over again, even in our disagreement. Isn't that, I mean, that's like crazy, powerful, beautiful. But yet in fear, we keep silent, or in fear, we agree, or whatever. And it makes our relationship difficult. And then sometimes resentment comes in to the relationship. All sorts of things, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about? So conflict is actually good. It's really good. It's how we get data. It's how we learn about each other. It's how we learn about ourselves. It's how we learn new perspectives. It's not to be feared. But when we fear it, it blocks us and it makes our relationships more difficult. So I'm going to check over my notes. Ah, yes. What if he cheats? What if she cheats? That's another fear. I don't really have the answer to that, except to say, what if they do? I will say this, going back to my specific thing. my specific situation. Whatever you say, be willing to back it up. Have a plan and be willing to back that plan up. Because that does take out a lot of the fear of what if he cheats, what if she cheats. So I knew with this particular guy that I was in this situationship with, I knew and that what I said I would do ends the relationship if you are sharing your organ with some other woman in her special place. I don't know why I'm talking like this. But yeah, I knew what I wanted, and I knew my plan would be to end the relationship if that's what would happen. And so whatever it is, when you make a decision about something or you say something, be prepared to honor your word. Because honoring your word will help avoid situations. And it could be in small little things. If you're telling someone, nah, I'm not picking your socks up off the floor for you, and you really don't do it. You know, like when you train a child, you're like, Junior, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, you get X, Y, and Z. It's kind of the same thing, but on a different level with men and women. If you always are a woman of integrity, you are always a man of integrity, you always honor your word, then that other person is going to respect you. And I'm not saying respect is going to guarantee your relationship from infidelity, but I will say, if you have a history of always being a woman of your word and always being a man of your word, then there will be a little bit more of respect, and it will mitigate some situations. Of course, this is not always a guarantee, because like I said, I literally told this man, this is how it's going to be. And he still cheated, I guess you could say. I don't know that I would say cheated, because we weren't really in a relationship. I was just expecting, I guess I would say I was expecting sexual commitment. I was not expecting emotional commitment from this person. But anyway, all that said and done, it does also kind of, I think, depend on the person's situation, because it shocked him that I actually was a woman of my word. I think, knowing what I know about him, that had not maybe always been the case. I could be wrong, but I think that, and also he had not known me for really long enough to actually know that I really am a woman of my word. But that's why you want to take your time, have a friendship with, someone. I feel in terms of romantic relationships, it doesn't always have to start out with a friendship, but there has to be some sort of friendship where you're really kind of getting that data and you're really getting a feel of that person on whether or not they are really a person of their word. Because I did shock him when I was like, okay, that's the end of that. We're done. Bye. Thank you and goodbye. Yeah. So if someone doesn't really have particular experience, it might not really, there's no guarantee in life. And I think at some point we have to be okay and accept and come to a place of peace and trust in God and our faith, because really faith overrides fear. The antidote to fear is faith. And so having the faith that even when things don't go as we desire or don't go as planned, and this person does cheat, or this person does use us for our money, or they use us for our clout, our influence, like our connections, whatever it happens to be, right? And that you still have the faith that at the foundation can still help you to move forward. However that forward may look. It could be in the end of the relationship. It could be in the reconciliation of the relationship. It all, there's so many factors, right? So it gets a little bit complex, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit off topic. So I want to get back on topic and say that knowing what our boundaries are, knowing what we will and will not accept, and being very clear with this is what I will and will not accept, and making the commitment to yourself. If she really does do this, I really am, I'm not making an empty threat. I'm really going to do it. I think it just gives us, it will give you peace. It will give you control. It will give you still power in something that you can't control, because none of us can ever control another person. And here's the thing, God does not even control us. God does not make us, he does not require us to serve him. He does not require us to love him. It's a choice. You, every single human on this planet today that will come in the future to live on this planet, or who has lived in the past on this planet, has had a choice, right? And that is love. Love does give a choice, and it doesn't demand, and it doesn't manipulate. And so it will say, like, God is like, hey, I'm here. I love you. But if you choose not to love me, and you choose not to believe in me, and you choose not to, and you also choose his son, Jesus, right, who died for our sins. I'm really now getting a little bit way off track, I feel like. But if you refuse all of us, if you don't choose any of us, if you do not choose me forgiving you, if you do not choose to allow me to forgive you, if you do not choose to say you're sorry for the things you've done wrong in your life, if you choose to do your own thing, then there will be a consequence. You're not going to spend eternity with me in heaven because, hey, you didn't want me for 20 years, for 80 years, for 100 years. You didn't want me. Why would you want me for forever? I'm not going to make you all of a sudden, you didn't want me for the years you were on planet Earth. Why would I make you want me in heaven? So I want you to go to hell, but you didn't want me, so you didn't choose me. It's kind of like that in our relationships. If God is giving us choice, well, it's the same thing. All right, well, you chose to cheat on me. Well, now we need some time apart. Whether it's we forever terminate the relationship, or the relationship is temporarily terminated and eventually reconciled and worked through, that is for you and the other person and you know what I'm saying, to figure out. But at the end, it's a choice. And if God's not forcing us to do a certain thing or behave a certain way, and we get to choose with him, and he loves us, who are we to try to force or manipulate or demand the person that we love behave the certain way that we want them to? And if they choose to go opposite, well, then there might be a consequence. You don't ever get to be with me ever again. Or we take a break. So I'm sure this is a little bit controversial. I hope that actually this made sense. I was trying to make a connection. Because sometimes we try to act so big and bad, and we're worth more. And we are worth a lot, right? We are priceless. You are unique. You are significant. But at the same time, we try to make ourselves sometimes more than we need to. We try to make ourselves little human gods. Bow down, worship me, kiss my hand, kiss my feet. So while we are significant, while we are important, we don't need to make ourselves to be like little gods and expect like our partner to just like always worship us. I am not condoning cheating or infidelity. Trust me, I'm not. I'm just trying to give a little bit of a shift in perspective, because ultimately what I am talking about is why our relationships so difficult. And this is one of them. Sometimes we puff ourselves up with our pride and our attitudes more than we need to. And that is really kind of being honest, right? Because I've done that. I felt like that, like, oh, I'm entitled to you loving me. After everything that I've done for you, after everything I've done for you, sir, after all the love I gave you, after all of this that I gave you, all of that I gave you, how dare you do me dirty like that? And to a point, yes, how dare he? How dare she? But with that attitude, we block ourselves from being able to forgive. We block ourselves from being able to heal. And we block the other person from also being free to make that choice to love us the way we deserve, to love us the way we want to be loved. And we just, in short, just kind of make things a little bit more difficult than they need to be. So I am not a confidence coach to just, anyway, tell people whatever it is that they want to hear, or to just tell people all the same messages that society is telling them or their families are telling them, right? Because that's how a lot of times we've gotten ourselves into the drama and into the difficult situations, is by listening to like the standard social messages or the standard messages, right? So I am trying to give a little bit of a shift in perspective, because that is how we begin to heal. We don't heal by continuing on in our own position. When I went through my healing journey, right, my really intense 3-year healing journey, right, my perspective was, I am not forgiving this man who hurt me. I also, in that, was also not forgiving myself. And I had to shift. I had to like actually change my perspective. And I had to actually look at myself, and I had to look at him, not through my experiences, not through my thoughts, but through God's thoughts. And so as a result, by looking at things differently and shifting and changing around and taking responsibility, and being willing to have been wrong and been willing to think differently and shift my perspective, that's how I have been able to heal. That's how I have been able to not have the drama and the complications. I'm not about ready to keep living the life that I was living back in 2016, 2017. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in the merry-go-round or the roller coaster or the up and down. And so I had to really think things differently that might be a little bit offensive initially, and I might feel some sort of way about. But in the end, that shift, that perspective actually is what brought me the healing that I needed. And also that healing as a result is what has made life in general less difficult for me. Not perfect, not easy. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Nothing's ever going to be easy. But without just so much difficulty, so much stress. So, yes. This is the longest video that I have ever made. I am looking at the timer and I am seeing that I am at 1 hour and 4 minutes. So I think that this video is done for today. If you enjoyed this video, of course, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because there are other videos. There's going to be more videos coming. Also, in the link to my bio, I do have a 20-day challenge, Evict Fear, that you can register for when you click the link in the in the description below. You will get all the information that you need about that challenge, but it will help you in your relationships, with yourself, with dating or marriage, or wherever you are in your relationships. It will help you with your health. It will help you with your finances, job insecurity, right? So tap the link below in the description. Evict fear. Let's get to the root of this. Let's evict fear from our lives, because when we evict fear, things are going to be less stressful, things are going to be less difficult, and we'll be able to, have the happiness, the inner peace, and the love that we're dreaming about, because the fear is blocking us from having these things. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for anyone. So let's evict fear. And yes, so sign up for the 20-day challenge in the link below in the description box. All right. So until next time, have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you happen to be listening and watching this video from. All right. And peace.